Mike, let me start with LeSean McCoy. The NFL has to wait for the police report on all this LeSean McCoy news, and it could be a problem if that investigation drags into the season. If he's on the field, they're still investigating him. So what do we know about this situation, and where is it headed with McCoy?
Well, and here's one thing to remember, Dan. In the aftermath of Ray Rice nearly 4 years ago, the NFL no longer defers to the criminal justice authorities. They'll do their own investigation. And if you have a motivated victim like Ezekiel Elliott had last year, you can get cooperation. You can get information. You can start trying to piece this all together. And by the end of the day yesterday, it appeared that the very strong implication being made by Delisha Corden's lawyers is that LeSean McCoy arranged for someone to invade the house he owns but she was living in to retrieve jewelry that he had given to her. And through that process, she took a horrific beating based upon the photographs that showed up yesterday on social media. So I don't know if this thing breaks quickly or slowly. I don't know if the NFL makes more progress than the authorities, but the theory seems to be fairly clear. Now the question becomes whether or not the evidence backs it up. And obviously, if the evidence backs it up, Dan, this guy's done. But at this point, it's just allegations. There is some circumstantial evidence that's troubling, but we see how it all plays out. But I think the NFL will be looking into it along with the authorities, and it could be the NFL provides some of its own resources to help the authorities in Georgia push this thing along, much like the NFL did with the authorities that were investigating Mike Vick 11 years ago.
Have we heard from LeSean McCoy?
Well, McCoy came out yesterday in the immediate aftermath of the photos emerging with the allegation that he personally inflicted the injuries, and he said he hasn't been directly involved with any of the individuals in months. And so, okay, hey, if you haven't been around these people, you didn't do it. But then as it unfolded throughout the day, it appears that the argument will be, if it ever gets to this point, that he arranged for someone else to do it. That's the message that screams out from between the lines of the statement that was issued yesterday by the victim's lawyer.
All right, the purchase for the Carolina Panthers is now finalized, but I guess they, for $2.2 or $2.3 billion, they also threw in Jerry Richardson's statue. Okay, did the new ownership want to take down the statue? Like, was there a statute of limitations here, Mike?
Oh, I like that. I see what you did there. Well, you know, the owner said yesterday he's contractually obligated to keep the statue, which is hardly a ringing endorsement when it comes to the desire. Well, you know, I have to keep I have to keep it up. Now, it's possible there's some issue with the city owning the land where the statue is, and maybe David Tepper providing some cover for the city so they don't start getting a bunch of tough questions about why they'd allow this statue to continue to stand. But the statue is going to continue to stand. And I'd hate to think that Jerry Richardson could have gotten even more money for the team, but he gave up some of it so he could secure the, ongoing placement of the statue well into the future outside of the stadium.
Why? Oh, man. I didn't even know there was a statue of Jerry Richardson. Are there any other statues of any other owners in the NFL?
I don't think there are, but you know what? This has probably given them all some pretty good ideas.
Well, Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones. A suit. It's a statue of a guy in a suit holding a football. It's the strangest thing.
Nothing inspires you quite like that. You know, when you show up at Lambeau and you see Lombardi, all of a sudden, Chicago Stadium with Jordan, and then you show up with the Carolina Panthers and Jerry Richardson's there in a suit. Nice.
But I agree with you. Jerry Jones probably already has the plans in place, and it will be bigger and nicer and more impressive than the Jerry Richardson statue.
The NFL Players Association had a statement yesterday, talking about the NFL's new anthem policy. Why did they wait so long to put this statement out?
Well, here's what they did. They filed a grievance, and they waited until the basically last minute they could file a grievance under the collective bargaining agreement, because I think they've been trying to work with the NFL behind the scenes, because this is not going to be a popular move, right? Anybody who is taking up the cause that ultimately supports players not standing for the anthem puts themselves in the target zone for all of the criticism, whether it's from the president or anyone else out there who insists that the players should be standing. So I think the NFLPA was hoping to work it out before they had to file the grievance. Now they've filed the grievance, and they plan to talk to the NFL. And that's what should have happened back in August of 2016. I put a lot of this on the NFL, Dan. They should have. The moment Colin Kaepernick was seen sitting during the National Anthem in a preseason game, and the NFL told me, I said, well, hey, what's your take on this? They said, players are encouraged to stand but not required. This all comes from a flawed policy the NFL wrote 9 years ago. They should have engaged with the union then to come up with a policy that requires the players to stand. They didn't, because I think they didn't want to make a concession, because if you ask the union, hey, we want something, the union says we want something back. That's how it works. Now that they've waited 2 years, it's going to take a lot more, I think, to get the players to give in on that point than it would have back in August of 2016.
What would you suggest? What if you were mediating, like advising the NFL, how would you handle this flag controversy?
Well, I'd say, hey, NFL, you have to engage with the union, sit down at the bargaining table, and you want all the players to agree to stand at attention and respect the flag during the anthem, and you have to listen to what the union would want in return. And I don't know at this point what the union would want in return. A lot of times people say, well, get rid of the marijuana policy. Well, the marijuana policy, it's a non-issue, because if you're smart, you know how to avoid a positive test. I don't know that the NFLPA is banging the drum to get rid of that, but maybe there's something the NFLPA is looking for that, is fairly significant, and it's important to them, and this anthem policy is important to the NFL, and they could come up with some sort of a quid pro quo, a give and take, a back and forth to solve this. But I think the NFL's stubbornness contributed to the problem in 2016. They didn't want to give anything up to get a commitment to stand, and now that it's going to cost even more to make it happen, they don't want to do it either. They just want to ram it through the way that they choose. And if they have to fight, they have to fight. But they could lose, because the argument's very simple, Dan. Once this right exists, the players have the right to protest. The NFL gave them that right. You can't just take it away without sitting down and talking to the union. That's the argument, and it seems pretty commonsensical. And if the union wins that, then the policy gets rolled back to what it was before May, and the NFL still has a major problem going into the 2018 season.
Thank you, Mike, as always. We appreciate your time.
All right, Dan. See you, buddy.
That's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, live on NBCSN, NBC Radio as well.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.